Before I get this video underway, I think it's worth mentioning that I don't actually hate this game in the slightest. I really enjoyed my experience throughout Strange Brigade, however with the consideration of the content provided for the current price, and the overshadowing season pass lurking in the background, I can't help but be disappointed with the final product. To put it into easier terms, it's not a bad game, but it doesn't feel like a complete game. Strange Brigade is the latest game to come from Rebellion, following the similar gameplay style of the previous games like the Sniper Elite and Halloween spin-off Sniper Elite Nazi Zombie Army trilogy. And honestly, both set of games are really well done, with each title in the main franchise improving the overall quality and satisfaction when it comes to the sniper rifles in the game, with sidearms and pistols taking a sidestep. As for why? Well, sniper's in the name, what do you expect? I personally think out of the two sets of games, Zombie Army Trilogy means more to me as I was introduced to Sniper Elite through those games, and hearing Rebellion are stepping back into that whole undead genre again, but with hopefully a new ongoing franchise, I was definitely eager to play Strange Brigade. And yeah, my first impressions when the game launched were really good. The game holds your hands slightly at first, but quickly lets you loose into shooting the oncoming horde of mummies and other various creatures throughout the sadly short campaign, score attack and endless mode. But more on those other modes later, for now I'm going to focus on the main campaign. So the story is pretty basic. The Strange Brigade is hired by the British to investigate a recently discovered tomb of an ancient pharaoh called Sateki, who dealt with witchcraft, thought to be dead and buried for a long time and forgotten, has actually been discovered by an explorer and accidentally resurrected. And by the time you get to her tomb though, it's obviously too late and Sateki is free once more, and her goal is to destroy the world obviously. Before each level we get an introductory scene where everyone is talking about the current situation at hand, or just chatting about some random rubbish. You also get through the cutscene a helpful narrative from someone who honestly sounds like the narrator from Come Dine With Me. I wish I was joking, but seriously that was the first thing I even noticed with this game.
Her priests were the sworn enemies of Sateki, and led the rebellion against her.
Oh, they sound fun.
Then we have allies in our fight.
Well, the cult of Wadjet died out long ago.
Damn it!
But it is possible they left behind them artifacts they'd use to overthrow the Witch Queen.
Oh, how jolly useful.
Freak am I. Literally, you're like my worst nightmare ever.
And it's nice to meet you too.
Are you hungry?
No, actually, I feel rather sick.
What a great start.
Yep, British television is absolute shit. Oh, and don't worry, that's not the only time you'll actually hear from him, as he pretty much narrates the entire game. Seriously, this man never shuts up. If you kill a monster, he has something to say about it. You find a puzzle and he comes out questioning if you're even capable of solving it. And if you go away from your PC without pausing, well, he has something to say about that as well.
Fine. Stand there, see if I care. You shan't get anything from me. We'll soon see who breaks first. Aha, there you go, back to the action. Go on, take this, just to show there's no hard feelings.
Personally, while it's a bit cheesy, I don't really mind it as it fits into the rest of the whole 1930s cheesy atmosphere, so I can let it slide. But if you're not a fan of the narrator talking over your entire life, you can actually lower how frequent he speaks over in the settings. However, because I was playing it for the first time, I left it on just to hear it. And it is funny sometimes, just not all the time. As for the main playable characters themselves, they deliver lines pretty well. They don't really say anything that memorable though, but hey, they actually talk this time when compared to the first two Zombie Army games, so that's definitely a step up. When it comes to the characters though, each character has a passive ability either ranging from having a passive health increase to being able to blow up enemies with headshots. However, that one's part of the season pass and we'll come back to that later. For now, when talking about the main characters of the base game, 3 of the 4 original characters have basic abilities, while the obviously chosen main character Archimedes has the ability to open up specific rooms that no one else can, which is my first problem when it comes to this game. If you want to be able to find every single piece of loot or collectible in the level, at least one of you have to play as him. Thankfully for me, he is my favourite character in the game, but there's players out there who would prefer to play someone else. It's like they tried to think of the same gimmick that the LEGO games used back in the day, but then gave up after making the first ability. But besides the passive abilities, each character also has a selection from 4 different special abilities as well, with one being unlocked from the start of the game, and the other 3 can be purchased with skill points. These abilities though can be pretty basic, ranging from stuff like blowing fire at enemies to turning enemies into chickens. It works, and I'm fine with it. But you might be wondering, how do you actually get these skill points? Well, that brings me on to one of the most irritating yet fun mechanics of this game. Treasure. Yes, with this game being a heavy reference to films like Indiana Jones, you'd expect loot to be within the game. However, some of the loot you'll find through this game is actually really fun. Throughout the game you'll find different chests around the level with either some treasure, collectibles, or weapon upgrades inside. However, the collectibles in here are a piece to a story, but the problem with these treasure chests are that they're pretty much first come first serve, and if you're not the host, well too bad, because if the host runs up next to you, they take priority and pick up the loot before you. Thankfully though, the artifacts and golden cats, which are more of an important collectible, aren't in the same boat, and if someone picks that up, everyone gets it. You need 4 of these artifacts for a collection to get a skill point to actually get the new abilities, so if they lock that behind the whole first come first serve problem, I don't think people would like it as much. But the problem here is it raises the question of why isn't everything like this? Besides the fact that treasure is pretty much everywhere and it's only reused to buy new weapons, the story collectibles aren't enough of a drive to actually make me want to replay the game again. The only thing I can think of is if you're trying to hoard all the weapon upgrades or try and 100% the game. But getting all the artifacts in the first run isn't even that hard anyway. There's only a few of these in each level, and these are normally obtained by shooting down a looter or trying to solve a specific puzzle scattered around the map. These puzzles come in various styles, with a couple of them being match and order provided, connect the pipeline, and then near the end of the game there's a couple of different ones, and some of them are big, like in an entire new room big, just made for them, which is great, but it's also a shame because there's only a couple within the campaign currently. You'd have expected with the theme this game is going with, each of the levels would have had a ton of different puzzles to offer as an optional brain teaser for the player, but instead it's the same puzzle over and over, which from what I see, they don't even scale with difficulties in the game, and that actually reminds me, I should really mention, the hardest difficulty in this game isn't even that hard. They make the enemies slightly tougher, but it's not enough to give yourself a challenge. With some puzzles though, there's one at the start of the game which is more a floor pattern puzzle, but you never see that puzzle ever again, which baffles me because that's the kind of generic puzzle you'd expect in these games. It's like they put you into a false sense of security, like, oh, this is what you can expect, and then nothing. And if my memory's not mistaken, you never see that kind of puzzle ever again. And it still just baffles my mind that they've done that. It makes you wonder if they thought of this first or just like an afterthought at the end. So with all of that in mind, we're now left with this really obvious issue that after a couple of levels, you've pretty much seen the entirety of what this game has to offer, excluding the final boss. Unfortunately though, this appears to be a trope that's carried over from the Nazi Zombie Army trilogy series. The first 2 games are very similar, and the final game has a couple of new side objectives and then a different final boss compared to the first 2. And to charge a higher price for arguably the same or less than that game series? Yeah, it's not looking that great. When it comes to bosses in this game, I'd argue that you only have 4 real bosses, and with all 4 being once again really easy, the first type of boss is a soul cage, and all it really is that you fight off a horde for a couple of minutes and then shoot the cage, and then rinse and repeat. It reminds me of the final boss in the first 2 Zombie Army trilogy games, where you have to shoot the floating skulls around him before you can actually shoot him. The next type of boss is very similar though, in the sense of you have to shoot the glowing lights, and then you can try and steal its soul? I think. I don't really know for sure with this one, but you use the same abilities you used to charge your special ability, and then there's the giant near the end of the game, where once again, you just wait for him to charge, shoot some lights, and then deal a bit of damage to him over and over. And what's weird about this is for a brief moment, you get into it, but then the game makes you realise that you're just doing the same thing over and over again, which is such a shame and a letdown. The only boss with any major differences though is the final boss of the game, and if you don't want the end of the game spoiled for you, well, I'll leave a timestamp on screen and you can skip to that. If however you don't really care, you might as well just keep watching. Okay, ready? Right, so the final level throws you into a new realm where Sateki is trying to end everything, and she summons her slave Amit, the devourer of souls, and basically he's there to try and stop you from stopping Sateki. And all you do in the end is just end up pissing him off to break a wall, go through the teleporter behind the wall, and once you go through, you then have to go and destroy, you guessed it, more soul cages. I kid you not, there is probably a total of 4 soul cages in this level. Once you've broken 2 of them, you can then attack Sateki, and after repeating this again, you pretty much beat the game. There's no second stage to it. Amit is free and you shoot Sateki in his mouth and they both die, and then that's it. The story's over. The Strange Brigade have saved the day. You don't find out how they escaped this immortal realm. They just kind of get on with their day. And that's it. There's no extra stories at the moment, not until the season pass is out anyway. But don't worry, there's 2 other game modes this game has to offer which you can play in the meantime, which is Score Attack and Endless. And both are pretty much what you'd expect from this game. Endless is just hold out for as long as you can with some traps scattered around the map. It also has some puzzles around the map as well, so you can unlock new weapons and little things. As for Score Attack, well, it's a snippet of the main campaign campaign map with a linear progression with a goal system set in place to get the most points, or if you're playing online there's a slight competitive edge to it. There's really nothing special about these modes. I mean, they're fun, but like most of these kind of game modes, they're only fun with friends, which trying to convince my friends to buy this game wasn't even that successful, so playing these alone gave me roughly 20 minutes of enjoyment before I got bored. I'm sure if I played it with friends I could sink a couple of hours into it, but they'd have to buy the game first. Currently, while Strange Brigade is a fun 4-player co-op shooter, it's pretty much lacking in every single area, but Rebellion have confirmed that we're going to get some new content for free every month. How long this is going to last, however, is yet unclear. All we've received so far are maps that have already been from the main game moved over to Score Attack, and then a new Endless map, and it really gives the vibe that they're locking off the entire game to make the illusion that you're going to get a constantly updated game when this stuff was ready at launch. I can't say there's any proof behind that, but that's genuinely the feeling I'm getting with this game. But with that aside, we also have the Season Pass, and for the first time ever, I'm actually regretting my purchase this time round. So the first time you technically get as DLC as a pre-order bonus, but with that you get a couple of new weapons which are arguably better than the main weapons in the game. So if you want to call it pay to win, I won't step on your way with that one. But if we look at the first piece of post-launch content coming with the Season Pass, it's not great. So from what we can see with the Season Pass, you're going to get 3 new campaign levels, a bunch of new characters and supposedly some new weapons. But so far we've had the first new character, and what you get with that character is very little. You get a new passive ability and then there's one new ability. And when I say new ability, I mean it was already in the game, but it was fire and now they've just made it electric. So if you're looking at completely original new content in this pack, all you're getting is a new character and a passive ability. But the problem with this passive ability is that it kind of ruins the whole idea of Score Attack mode. And the new ability is the one I mentioned earlier with the explosive headshots, meaning if you kill a group of huddled monsters together, you get a very unfair advantage to the other players and basically take all the points. So the price of this pack is roughly about £5.60 in the UK, and you don't even get a new weapon. Payday character packs were similar priced and it has more to offer than this, and I can't help but say it, but the first pack was a really poor and bad choice to introduce what the Season Pass has to offer, because the majority of it is character packs, so you're basically going to see nothing out of the money you've spent on it. And keep in mind, this Season Pass is roughly 3/4 of the price of the main game, so yeah, I'm going to be a little bit pissed and expect more from it. As for the new campaigns though, I can't really say anything because they haven't been released yet, so we'll have to wait and see. Overall though, as I'm repeating myself now, while Strange Brigade is a fun game, I really hope they flesh this game out in the future with either more content or maybe in the next game in the series. If you're looking for a recommendation on this game, the best I would say is wait for a sale if you're really desperate to try it, but when it comes to the Season Pass, just avoid it for the time being. Until we know what's actually coming out, I wouldn't waste your money on it.